This is the Dallas Morning News.
Welcome to Giant Stories, a podcast inspired by people and brands with meaningful stories to share. I'm John Kiker, your host and president of Medium Giant, a fully integrated creative agency in Dallas and Tulsa. While the tools we have at our disposal to create and share stories have never been more broad and varied, the fundamentals of great storytelling remain as transcendent as ever. Despite the headwinds our industry faces, clients and brands will always covet companies that remain steadfast with a steady eye on culture, an understanding of the business dynamics at hand, and a commitment to the fundamentals of what makes a great story. So on today's podcast, we had an amazing opportunity to speak with Justin Adu. Adu is probably most known for being the host of the award-winning podcast, A Dose of Black Joy and Caffeine. The guests that he's had over his 200 episodes, he just wrapped up his last season just about a month ago, is unbelievable. So whether it's a conversation with Bozoma St. John or Ruben Studdard, or his work teaching and giving platforms and giving visibility to Black creatives in our industry, or the passion that he's shown in bringing unique stories to life with Google and Logitech through social media, he's about as engaging of a person as you could ever hope to have. And what a breath of fresh air, and what a passionate guy he is to hear from and engage with. And as you'll see if you're watching the video, a really, really strong hat game as well. So excited for you guys to watch and to listen to this. Adu, my friend, it is wonderful to see you. Thanks so much for joining Giant Stories.
Absolutely. Talk about a giant individual. So thank you so much for having me. When I got the invite, it was a no-brainer for me to join. The impact that you have even had on my career, even just by your presence in the office, and you're such an inspiration. So it's truly an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
From your lips to my boss's ears. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. Hey, so as we always start off with Giant Stories, this is a podcast talking about stories that are out in the world, but I'm most interested because you've done so many unique things. You're always curious and always looking for how you grow and evolve, but I would love to hear for the audience to hear your story.
Absolutely. So I always like to say that, my story really started off with me being a bit right brain, left brain. And I have to thank my parents for that. My dad being from Ghana, so a Ghanaian that was very much so like, you have to have book bag and pen and paper and, what do you want, Jordan? And then my mom was very, very creative. Actually, something that's very fascinating is that in the 1960s, my mom actually used to work in the finance department at JWT.
Wow.
During that time. Yeah. So
and you never wanted to go into finance, huh? That wasn't your gig.
No, absolutely not. But I did know that I wanted to go into advertising. And so through me wanting to go into advertising, I went to Alabama A&M University to get my degree in graphic design. And then later on, that wasn't enough for me. I really wanted to build my portfolio, and I loved the ideation. And that's when I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. And that's where our story ultimately begun, because I got my first internship at Tracy Locke. So, I think from there, it was really about me taking the art of storytelling and my love of art direction and my love of tech and my love of just overall really celebrating individuals and humans. And that's why I think I had the career that I have today, is because I've always put people first, personally and professionally.
So let's talk about that, because right now, working with the One School, you talk about putting people first. This is all about educating and mentoring. So talk a little bit about that and the stories that you see come to life when you are, again, seeking out talent that maybe has been underrepresented and giving them a platform and giving them a stage to really add to an industry that's in such dire need of more diverse talent.
Yeah, 100%. Especially having, I think, kind of walked that struggle. Sometimes I think that whenever you are a creative individual, and especially, if you're a Black individual, or even if, you're from another background and you don't see yourself in an office, there are so many other things that you really are fighting up against. And so by being closely tied to the one school, the one thing that I really love about their program is that I'm able to have those candid conversations about things that you're going to face. You may actually face bias and not realize it. You may face uncomfortable conversations, and that's okay. That's a part of the human experience.
Absolutely.
That's a part of us actually teaching each other about the kinks and the quirks and the different things that are from our backgrounds. Like, that's what gets me up every day, as weird as it sounds. But, with the one school, I'm able to work with students, help them build their portfolios. And then the beautiful thing about the one school program is, unlike me, who, yes, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, but I also have a hefty bill that I had to pay back from them. The one school is completely free. So these individuals aren't going into financial debt, going into their careers. And a lot of times, especially within minority communities, financial wellness, as well as just financial equity, is something that a lot of communities are fighting for. So I love, being able to teach with the one school, as well as Miami Ad School, and teaching in general is something that I encourage all professionals to really try to venture into, if they have the degree or they have the experience.
I think we should all feel an obligation to do that. As you get on in this career, the only way that we're going to ensure its success moving forward, especially as fragmented and fraught with, what is AI bringing to the table, and are there certain roles and skill sets that might be diminished versus other ones that might be created. I think we all have an obligation to lean in and make sure that that generation can move this industry forward in a way that we would all be proud of once our careers are over, right?
Absolutely, definitely, because we do want them to be over respectfully.
Yeah.
We do
At
want
some point.
retirement to
At
come
some
at
point.
some point.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So as long as we're kicking, yes, but yeah, after we're over, yeah, it's like, what is the next generation doing, and also how they're doing that. And I'm sorry, I know that I know that you probably are gonna like, the dude, don't turn the mic right now, but I have to turn the mic on you really quickly.
Oh no.
Kiker.
Oh no.
I do, Kiker.
There he
I'm
goes.
sorry. Just give me.
You're
2
such a
seconds.
podcast host. Now you're doing your thing. All right. All right.
No,
Bring it.
because I just want to thank you for doing that seriously in my career. And I think that, when you talk about the younger generation, it's really about being seen. And I remember being at Tracy Locke and feeling very seen by you for who I was, the difference and what that was and what I was bringing to the table. So I think that at a bare minimum, even if you can't teach, still feeling seen is something that any professional could really do for a younger generation. So sorry, I had to do it, but thank you so much.
No, you were very kind. So I want to talk about that, not the moment, but between you and I, but when you talk about your work with the one team and, young Black professionals perhaps not seeing themselves in the industry, was there a moment where, whether it was at SCAD or Tracy Locke or maybe even another gig, where you felt like, okay, I see myself doing this. I see my role. I see where my contributions can start to make a difference. Where, was it an aha moment, or was it a collection of moments moving forward?
I don't know if I still have seen it yet.
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up. Like, are you there yet? Yeah, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think that the industry still has a lot of work to do when it comes to that. And the reason why I say that I don't think that I still have seen myself yet is, especially within the current climate of a lot of jobs that are recently happening. I think since 2020, and a lot of racial equity commitments that have really fallen through the cracks.
Yep.
I think that the industry still has a lot of work to do to really remove that bias. And that's why it's an ongoing conversation. And it's not just, me, I'm speaking as a Black man, so I can only speak from my experience.
Sure.
But we're also talking about individuals that, where there may be a disability, in place, or even when it comes to women. And I think that those conversations are so important. So unfortunately, I still have not seen that, but I think that is where the passion and the fire with me really comes from, is hopefully someone being able to see me in a seat and then see themselves. But I think that the industry still has a lot of work to do to where it feels like there's a active plan in place for a lot of companies to where they're doing it on an ongoing basis, and it's not on a one-off basis for sure.
So let's talk about that, because I know that you've been very involved with AdColor, and obviously over the last 4 years, you initially had this crescendo of conversation around George Floyd and all the commitments that companies started to make, and there was a lot. So whether it's political pressures or economic pressures or whatever, there are a lot of companies who have either deprioritized or diminished what they're doing from a commitment to DEI. So how do you and AdColor bring, shine a light on that and make sure that that's not something that's lost? Because it is absolutely what's going to move us forward, is that we continue to build and diversify our workforce.
Absolutely. So AdColor was founded by Tiffany R. Warren, and Tiffany R. Warren has always been, I think, a champion, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's really about celebrating individuals in the industry, but also challenging them that as they continue to rise up, they're reaching back. And I think that is something that I have really took on, and I've learned from Tiffany, and I've also learned from AdColor, is that even as a professional and being in this industry, it's something that I have to do. And I go to these different companies, or maybe I have different roles and different things that I'm doing, but I can't forget about the other individuals that, don't have a seat at the table, aren't landing the interview, aren't being talked to. Maybe they're not in the boys club, and so those are the people that I always think about as I continue to progress on, hey, there's this opportunity here, or hey, I know this person, because they just don't have the resources. I think Viola Davis said it best one time, where she mentioned, I have the Oscar, I have the Tony, I have the Grammy, I have the Emmy, but I'm still not getting Meryl Streep money or Meryl Streep opportunities. Now, that's up for debate too, Meryl Streep versus Viola Davis. But
I was about to say, those are two heavy hitters right there. So
they are. But point is that if we're speaking 100% on resume and resume alone, why aren't certain people being let in the door or being seen? And it's blatant and it's obvious. So that's why I say, I haven't seen it, but that's what I love about AdColor, because through that community that we're creating, as well as the other people, is challenging us to actually do the work and say, hey, if no one's going to let us in the door, let's continue to make progress while still being able to reach back and bring others along the way.
Yeah, and maybe try and kick a couple doors in while we're at it, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Respectfully, yes.
Yeah, respectfully, of course. So let's talk a little bit about a dose of Black Joy and Caffeine. I know that you had just posted that you are going to be wrapping up this podcast, which I'm sure is a bit of a bittersweet thing for you, but you've had so many amazing guests. And, you talk about Black creators in the industry, whether it's tech or advertising, design, market, all kinds of different fields that you've talked to. I can only imagine, pun intended, that these people fill your cup, but these are people who have broken through, who have made their way. So, as you sort of reflect on the seasons and the amazing guests that you had, what are some of the key takeaways that you have, putting this on the shelf?
A dose of Black Joy and Caffeine has changed my life forever. And it is bittersweet to end, going into next year. It's hard to even not get emotional thinking about it, but going into next year is going to be the last year. And the one key three, as you mentioned, that I could really take away, from the show is that Black people are resilient. Black people are not going to stop. I think that's the one thing. The other thing is that they are brilliant. And the other thing is that we do have joy at the end of the day. And that is why I even started the podcast. That's why I wanted to do it, is because it really did come from a time of so much Black trauma that was really being almost romanticized among, I think, the ad industry at that particular time. I won't mention any publications because they're also now very much so friends of the show for sure. But I think that it really helps people realize that there are stories that you could still lean into without really, amplifying Black trauma. So those are the three things that it really taught me. And if anything, hopefully it taught that to the community. So a dose of Black Joy and Caffeine, 250 episodes.
That's unbelievable. Congratulations. Congratulations. What an
Thank you.
accomplishment. So, all right, I'm going to put you on the spot. So 250 episodes, there's, you know, a story under each one of those conversations or multiple stories within each conversation. I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to pick out one or two whose stories just blew your doors off. Like, wow.
Oh man. I always say with the podcast, it's almost like the after show is always kind of what does it.
Oh,
So
there you
that's
go.
like
There you
that's like the
go.
confidential
Yeah,
information I
yeah.
want to say. But there's a few. The first person that I would say is I had to say Ruben Studdard, Grammy Award winning Ruben Studdard. He was the second
Mm-hmm.
American Idol. And it was just nice to have him on the podcast. I think really tell his story, and also I think some of the challenges that he still, is facing as an R&B singer, but then also some of the amazing ways that he's also contributing to up and coming music artists. So I really loved it because once again, a dose of black joy and caffeine, while we certainly talk about, individuals within the industry, that was a great one.
Yeah.
The other one that comes to mind is I have to say Bozma St. John,
Mm.
which
She
I
is
think
a force. A force. Wow, she's something else.
yes, absolutely. And that was just great. I think with her time and everything that she was just talking about authentically being yourself and so much of the work that she did. And I cannot give Bozma enough credit for everything that I think that she's done by being in the rooms that she's been in, doing the work that she's created. I mean, she is the individual that brought Beyonce to the Super Bowl the first time when Pepsi was doing the halftime show. So,
Yeah, and some of the
you know,
some of the traumas that she's overcome personally too, throughout,
yeah.
which really just her resilience and her being unafraid to be her authentic self and showing up. I mean, it put her on a global stage from a marketing and creative perspective.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So those are two. It's so hard because everyone is so unique and all of them I have different things. I had, another executive that like also, told me on Instagram live at one point that they were, ending their job, and I was like, is this an exclusive for what,
Wow. Okay.
and so I've had some people that, have gone through some very, very hard things that we just had to edit out of the show. But if anything, I hope that it really served as a resource to individuals that are looking to get into the industry, and also, as you mentioned, fill your cup. So I appreciate that question.
Love it. Absolutely. So let's take a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more on the professional side. So you have worked in the creator and social space for much of your career, and the key to bringing great social engagement to life is having a unique story to tell. So from a social perspective, you worked with some really interesting brands, whether it's Google or whether it's Logitech. So what do you look for in a story in those spaces? Like what really grabs your attention, or where you see an opportunity to create and connect with the consumers with products in a way that's authentic to them? Because we can all tell good stories, but if we're working for a brand, it's got to be authentic to them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I really look for is how we're able to scale a story, and how many people we're going to reach. And then even when we talk about products, is how many people can we actually tell their product story through that campaign or that story. So an example that I can give you is working at Google during the height of the pandemic. I remember our CMO coming to my team at that particular time, really saying, hey, what can we do around COVID-19? Quick turnaround on social media. So I was able to create a series called the Weekly Trend Series. And so through that series, it was really highlighting how during a time of isolation, Google search is the one place that we can find community. And so really being able to land and create that strategy around amplifying search queries around COVID-19, whether it's, you talked about, my hat earlier, but
It's
whether it's
strong.
how
It's strong. I'm telling you.
to whether it's how to cut your hair, that's what started it, or how to make banana nut bread. But being able to, post those queries and then create content around it and optimize the content based on the platforms is something that I really look for. So the biggest thing that I always look for is, okay, well, what's the hook? what's the end, and then how is it scalable? How can we create multiple content pieces around this idea, but then optimize it for social? And then the beautiful thing about that is that once I launched it in the US, I was able to launch it in our EMEA as well as
Mm-hmm.
APAC market. And so I was posting anywhere from 50 to 100 Google search queries a week, based on COVID-19. And we were able to actually see a spike in some of those resources during that time. So I think the biggest thing when you're creating a social media campaign, especially if it's organic, is how can you scale this idea? Or is it just going to be something that people see one time and then forget about?
Well, what's unique about Google is that there's this universality, right, that crosses cultures, that crosses borders, because the benefit and the value that Google provides anybody is connecting you to information, right? And in that time and place, you know, being culturally of the moment, which everybody was, but Google has such a unique opportunity to deliver value in ways that others can't. That you know, sometimes you have to think through cultural bias and cultural. You always do. But sometimes it's very obvious that some products just do it intuitively and naturally, and it really solves a lot of the overthinking that you might have to do sometimes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when you're talking about billions of users around the world. So really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, best time of my life. Always love Google and my experience there.
So speaking of Google, the technology in our space, whether it's AI or the number of platforms or all kinds of implications that technology has on how we think and how we create. But you've always been one who's embraced technology and has really sort of been at the bleeding edge of what can it do for us and what sort of fun experiments can we do that might fail but might actually produce some interesting results. So talk about how you view technology and how you embrace it with storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've seen so much of it, you know? I think no matter, where you're from, no matter your age, no matter your demographic, we've all seen so many different things come and go. And so it's really about, okay, well, what's going to stick? But I think as a marketer and also as a social media strategist, I really just gravitate towards it and the opportunity of being able to tell a story on a different platform. I want to say maybe about 1 to 2 years ago, Be Real, the social media app, was at like the height of what Gen Z was using. And so when you think about a social media app and companies such as Be Real, they're front facing, they have a front facing camera and then they also take a picture of the thing in front of them. But when I was working at Logitech during holiday season, they wanted to reach Gen Z. And so being able to pitch a new platform like Be Real, where we didn't necessarily have a huge community on there, but we knew that that's where Gen Z was at. It seemed like the most rational thing to do, and that's what we did. And I think being able to be on emerging platforms and then also challenge the brand, especially brands that are a bit older, is just something that I've always been excited about doing. So I embrace the technology from that standpoint. And I also embrace it because as a minority, I think that Black people have always looked at technology and to find their voice, whether that is, switching up their MySpace pages, adding funky music to it, really changing out the backgrounds to express themselves. And I think that even as you look at, X, which was formerly known as Twitter, that's especially a place that Black Twitter was able to really find their voice and express themselves as well as really tell their own stories. So I think for me, it really is twofold. One, I think it's just exciting from a consumer perspective, but then also personally, I think it's the one place to where I don't have any roadblocks when it comes to telling my story my way and how I want to.
I think there's also a level of excitement, at least within our four walls, when we're experimenting with the new technology or a new platform that this might not work. I mean, to me, I think that there's a level of excitement to say, hey, let's, if there's a possibility that it's going to fail, like let's mess around and make sure that we do this right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And setting expectations, that's all that you have to do. It's the same thing. It's almost like, no one likes it when you're, planning a huge party and you say, okay, I may or may not come.
Right.
No one likes that feeling.
Right.
But you know that, okay, that person may show up and it's great. And if they don't, okay, maybe you're not that happy. And I think it's the same way with using, technology and these emerging platforms, it's like this may work and it may not work, but if it works, great.
Yeah, well, and I think the key to that is having a trusting partner, whether it's a client or some other internal constituency that you have to work with. That's okay with assuming the risk and say, you know what, if nothing else, we're going to learn something and we're going to tell a meaningful story. And if it resonates with everybody, great. If it doesn't, we're going to understand why it didn't, and we're going to adapt and evolve. But we're not going to stop tinkering, right?
100%. And I think even on top of that, I would also add, I think having a client that understands the agency landscape and having a client that understands the in-house landscape, because those two worlds and perspectives of pitching those particular ideas look very different. And I could certainly say that me working in advertising, for roughly around, those 5 to 8 years, that I was strictly in the agency and then going in-house, I gravitate towards those ideas coming from the agency because I understand, why they're pitching them. And I understand why I, as somebody that's in-house, may have a little hesitation. Well, it's because, I may be either too product focused or, I'm too much in my bubble. So it's very important.
I'd like to dive a little bit more into that. So as a creative, because I think there's a lot of marketers who've worked at agencies, client side, client service marketers who worked at agencies, and then have moved over to the client side. But as a creative who's straddled the both sides of the fence, talk about your perspectives from each and what you've learned or appreciated about the other side, having been in both.
Yeah, the rigor for sure. I don't think there's any way that I would be able to work in the tech industry or even work at, so many places if I did not necessarily have that rigor to move fast, move quickly. Especially once being an art director, there's no time like now to actually turn around a mechanical.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah.
Especially, we're not, whatever these kids are using these days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Canvas, Canva,
yes.
whatever,
I trust my team. I don't need to know all the details. I trust my team.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah,
but to that standpoint, being able to do that. So, I think working on the agency side is really the rigor. The other thing too is really, really, really understanding the brief and questioning the brief as much as possible when it's coming from the client, because, I also, my hat goes off from like an agency hour standpoint, so it's being able to learn and know things like that. And then the other thing too is just collaboration and trusting your team and your art director and working with them and, really trying to form bonds in and out of the office, because some of the best ideas actually come out of the office. So the agency has taught me that. And then on the flip side, being in-house and working so closely for products, whether that's THX technology or it's Google, Google Assistant or Google products, or even if we're talking about Logitech mouse and keyboards, it's really being able to know the user 100% and then also understand the product functionality. And so being a product marketer, which I don't coin myself as, I don't like it.
It's not who you are. It's something you've done, right?
Yes, it's something that I've done.
There you go.
I think that, having education and awareness about both of those particular environments has really helped, for me to produce great ideas as well as to really, nurture great ideas from the agency as well as in-house.
Absolutely. All right. So a couple more questions for you. First, what stories are out there that we have an overabundance of? We have, we've seen this story too much. We need to see something different. What's an overabundance?
I think we've seen an overabundance of the AI story and the AI story being done incorrectly. I think that's what we've seen an overabundance of. I don't think that we figured it out yet in order to really start creating, campaigns around it, as well as being able to, actually use images. I like the testing and trying, but I think that we've seen an overabundance of it not being done correctly or the right way. And I think that we're still trying to figure out the technology as well as the tools and the best way to execute it. So there's nothing wrong with it. I think that there's a lot of stuff out there, but I don't know if anyone has necessarily landed it just yet. But that's also exciting.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we have the opportunity to hopefully do. So I would say the use of AI in various different stories, but I don't think that we've nailed it quite yet.
Okay. What is there an underabundance of from a story perspective?
Underabundance of.
Yeah, we
I
need
think
more.
that, yeah, that we need more of. I think that there is still an underabundance of Gen Z focused stories, as well as Gen Z owned stories. I think that we could really trust more individuals that skew Gen Z, that are within that age bracket, to create their own stories, to work on campaigns. We have them actually leading it, and I think that they're amazing. Like, through the creation, I think it's just simply really trusting them, with the huge budgets, with the way that it's coming to life, and also the voice. And I think that
And what their
even as,
spending power is, right? I mean,
yeah,
these are people who have a
absolutely.
major contribution to to our economic potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of cases, they're not in the room, or they're just really kind of being positioned to create TikTok videos. And it's great. They understand the platform, they know it. But at the same time, imagine what they could actually do. And I can only speak from a social media perspective on other platforms, or even if they were to be given a larger campaign. So I think, when it comes to, Gen Z generation, I think that I think currently there's an underabundance of just trust with that generation. And I would love to see more of that. I know it's certainly something that I do 100%, is really try to foster Gen Z, as well as any team members that are reporting into me, but, to really make sure that they have a seat at the table on those larger campaigns.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So I know that you've teased that you're working on what's next for you, and I'll certainly give you the platform if you want to spill the beans, or if you just want to talk about in more broad general things like what's next for you. What's the next 5 years look like for Adu?
Oh man, next 5 years for me. Rest is always included in that, so I can
Should
never
be.
get enough of that.
Good for you. Good for you.
We all have to say that. But no, I am excited, with the end of A Dose of Black Joy and Caffeine. But I'm also excited because I will be still executive producing, as well as creating podcasts. So that's what opens up the door for me, which I'm really, really excited about. I would also say that, it makes me step a little bit away from being in front of the camera and the mic, but really being able to do that. And then still working, on social media campaigns, really still understanding social media communities, fostering them. I have a new opportunity that I'm really excited about. You know, uh, Still being able
I
to
look
do
forward to hearing about it. I look forward to hearing about it soon.
that.
I get it.
Yes,
I'm reading between
yes.
the lines. I look forward to hearing about it.
Thank you. Yeah, so everything has been going really, really great. And yeah, everybody will have to stay on their toes.
They will, and I know that you've been such a meaningful contributor to the conversation, not just around elevating Black voices, but just how we think about work and how we evolve. And
Thank you.
I always enjoy hearing what's next for you, because it's never a dull thing, whether it's a personal endeavor or something that you're doing professionally. Just to say I knew you back when is a point of pride for me. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep that hat game as strong as ever. I can only aspire to shop where you shop for hats. I will look for some guidance and direction. But seriously, man, thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Such an honor to be here. I am so excited about this podcast, and I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to listen to the other episodes.
Absolutely, it's going to be great. Thanks. Take care, bud. Giant Stories is a production of Medium Giant and our parent company, the Dallas News Corporation. Interested in learning more about how your brand's story can be better told and sold? Visit mediumgiant.co or send an email to hello@mediumgiant.co.